In our top stories tonight, Barbados to benefit from U.S. support for the Caribbean to access funding for recovery from COVID-19. Tourism players ready to welcome visitors when they begin to return in just over a week. More opportunities being offered for students to embark early on an entrepreneurial path. And in sports, associations advised to be cautious when resuming their 2020 seasons.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
Good evening, I'm Lisa Broom. Thanks for joining us. In our top story tonight, as Barbados and the region work to come out on top in the fight against COVID-19, the United States has come forward to offer its support in the key area of access to funding. This was revealed earlier today by Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley as she addressed the virtual handover of the CARICOM chairmanship to her Vincentian counterpart, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves. Lorna Jones has more.
During her address, Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley revealed the U.S. has committed to assisting the region with its immediate humanitarian needs as well as long-term recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. The commitment was expressed through a letter jointly signed by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Secretary of the Treasury Stephen Mnuchin, which she received Thursday night. The assistance includes supporting concessional financing for territories which have been graduated from the World Bank's funding program.
In the letter, it goes on to state specifically, first, if requested, the United States would support temporary access to the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development just for COVID-19 related assistance for the Bahamas and Barbados, the two Caribbean graduates from the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Let me say that we have been making and arguing this case for over 2 years, and we have made it more recently again in all of our correspondence to the heads of the international financial institutions and to the heads of government across the entire global community.
The U.S. is also supporting access to over $1 billion in funding from the IMF.
To address immediate liquidity needs, the United States has leveraged its leadership at the IMF to support a total of $1.7 billion in new emergency funding for Caribbean countries.
Prime Minister Motley also touched on LIAT, saying that although it had served the region well over the years, it could no longer continue in its current state. 6 airlines have expressed an interest in filling the gap.
SVG Air and One Caribbean out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the chairman, I'm sure, will speak more to that. CAL, which is already an airline known to the region. Inter-Caribbean, which is an airline from the Turks and Caicos and is a successor airline to Air Turks and Caicos and has been around for over 20-something years with an extensive fleet as well. Silver, which we have asked to meet with us over the course of the next few days, and that is an airline out of the United States of America but working within the Caribbean and between the US and the Caribbean. And of course the Air Antilles, which is French-based, as you know.
Meanwhile, in his first official address as CARICOM chair, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves says it's time to concentrate on the way forward.
Let us build further upon our solid accomplishments in this, our remarkable region and magnificent Caribbean civilization.
Dr. Gonsalves holds the position of CARICOM chair until July 2021. Lorna Jones, CBC News.
Thanks, Lorna. And Barbados is set to welcome its first commercial flight next Sunday, July 12th. And the head of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association says hotels are ready to greet visitors after just over 3 months. Lisa Lord reports.
During a Zoom meeting with members of CBC News this morning, Chairman of the BHTA, Jeffrey Roach, says guests have been calling various hotels anxious to return to the island. He admits while members of the association are ready to welcome visitors, they do need to have a list of the protocols required. He's quick to add, however, that some guidelines were in place previously.
In the period when we were winding operations because of the impact of COVID, we would have had to have had protocols implemented. So protocols already established. We know the standard things with, the hand washing, the social distancing, the erection of screens where necessary, etc. A lot of those would have been already implemented. The protocols, the national protocols to be finalized will include those things, of course, and there will likely be some additional requirements. But we do not anticipate that there's a great disparity between what we already know and probably have in place and what that requirement will be. So it should be a pretty short distance to cover to get to where we need to be.
But while there is anticipation, there is also some concern about the spike in cases coming out of the United States. It is a major market which could also have implications for the cruise industry, as connecting airports could be impacted.
If you look at Florida, Miami International Airport would be one of the gateways through which guests travel to get to Barbados. Primary one being Miami and the New York airport. And we are seeing a significant spike in Florida. So it's foreseeable that will have an impact, a negative impact.
The BHTA is also moving to protect as many jobs as possible, and officials are having discussions with the labor movement on an ongoing basis.
Businesses have been under pressure, but any business that's under pressure, it means that potentially employment is also under pressure. And any business that has to cease operations, by extension, means there's a loss of jobs. And our intention has always been on preservation of jobs wherever possible. So with that in mind, we actually have had a number of discussions, meetings with the labor movement on that. And I think those have gone pretty well so far.
Another area of concern is the uncertainty surrounding regional carrier Liat. With a third of the island's visitors coming from the Caribbean, this could add to the negative impact on an already strained local tourism industry. Lisa Lord, CBC News.
Thanks, Lisa. The Frederick Smith Secondary School is now the 8th secondary school with a hairdressing and barber salon, giving students an opportunity to be professionally certified in yet another area. This ribbon cutting signaled the official opening of the hairdressing and barber salon at the Trent's St. James School. Education Minister Santia Bradshaw says it's an excellent example of a public-private sector collaboration, facilitated through a partnership with the owner of No. 1 Beauty Supplies, Mohamed Join. The salon is the second fully outfitted by the company. The first is at St. George Secondary. Minister Bradshaw says it's the realization of a dream for the students and a step in the direction of making the curriculum more relevant to their needs.
What we are witnessing here today is not just a nicely painted room with a few pieces of equipment, but rather a space which now meets the rigorous requirements of the CVQ program, which demands that training and assessment take place in an environment which mirrors the workplace. Within this new space, students will be expected to demonstrate competence in the field which aligns to regional standards developed by practitioners, industry experts, and employers in preparation for the world of work.
Minister Bradshaw says the curriculum will change to introduce more business courses to complement what the students learn. Meantime, Mr. Mohammed has pledged the company's continued support to the education sector.
To be able the young girls and boys to have skills after they go out, and especially with this situation, we are the time there to help the Ministry of Education to do more projects, more schools, equipment, material for the schools. It's not going to stop here. Just we open the school and we go. We're going to, supply them with the supplies, whatever they need.
Well, students who work in the salon will be fully certified in the Caribbean vocational qualification, cosmetology and barbering. Barbadian cricketing legend Sir Everton Weekes is to be accorded an official funeral. This was revealed this afternoon by Minister of Creative Economy, Culture and Sports John King after consultation with Sir Everton's family. The legend passed away earlier this week at the age of 95.
The late Sir Everton de Courcy-Wheats will be accorded an official funeral. Sir Everton, the last of the world-renowned trio, affectionately known across the cricketing world as the 3 Ws, was a masterful batsman who helped to lay the foundation for nearly 2 decades of West Indian cricket rule. The government of Barbados is more than satisfied that Sir Everton is deserving of this honor, given the glory he brought to himself, to his country, and to the region by the high caliber of his sportsmanship and conduct on and off the field. He is, without a doubt, the kind of individual all Barbadians and all West Indians, both young and old, should emulate. On behalf of the government and the people of Barbados, I wish to extend our deepest condolences to his family, to his friends, and to his colleagues. May he rest in peace and rise in glory.
The Barbados Water Authority intends to use modern pipes with a concrete lining to alleviate brown and rust-colored water some residents in communities have reported flowing from their taps. Acting General Manager Dr. John Mwanza says the problem lies with the types of pipes used up to the mid-1970s. Dr. Mwanza was a guest on CBC TV8's Morning Barbados.
When the water flows through it, it is touching the concrete and not the pipe. As you may be aware, in the coastal areas, our fresh water floats on top of seawater. So the two end up mixing up to a point. So that means our water is considered an aggressive water. So when it gets in touch with a metal pipe, which can be corroded, then that pipe gets corroded.
Dr. Mwanza wants Barbadians to embrace collecting rainwater for non-potable use.
If you do that, you then reduce the amount that you require for potable uses. And the amount that is currently being delivered by water tanker service can be used for potable uses. And because of the limited number of water tankers that we have, if that demand on the potable water is reduced, then the difficulties being experienced by those impacted would then be minimized.
Worthing Food Truck Court is a new and exciting street food experience that is quickly making waves in Barbados. Shane Jones was at the official opening last evening.
With the COVID-19 curfew now a thing of the past, at least for now, and crowd restriction rolled back, there's a new cuisine craze in bed. Now, street food has been one of the pillars of local cuisine for centuries across the globe. And now, Barbados has a one-stop spot for it with the Worthing Food Truck Court. Although operating for a little while now, with over 15 vendors serving delicious food from all corners of the world, the new attraction officially opened up with a party-like atmosphere of great food, music, and world-class drinks. Founder Nisha Sodine explained how the idea came about.
They had all of these food trucks scattered around the island and forcing patrons around the island on a somewhat of a scavenger hunt to try to find them. And Sasha had this piece of land here in the epicenter of Barbados, in the heart of Worthing. I mean, even Parliament has moved to Worthing. And he decided to make this space available to all of these small businesses so that they could have a place to call home.
Ms. Sudine says the food truck court has surpassed expectation.
It's just turned into this amazing area full of energy, full of life. During the day, there's so many patrons that keep strolling in, not only from this environment, but from the West Coast, from the East Coast. They come here, they lime, they get their food.
BHTA Chairman Jeffrey Roach is happy it's something locals can enjoy as well.
I think that this is a fantastic initiative, first of all, for Barbadians, because while we in the tourism industry want to have activity for our visitors, we believe first and foremost that we have to have local patronage.
Maltgay is one of the vendors in the court, and Managing Director Raphael Grisoni says it's a progressive concept.
COVID shows us that business cannot be as usual. And we need innovation. And I think this place, and thank you, Sasha and the Sudin family, we have brains, bright brains, and they come with innovation. And we need innovation in Barbados. And this is the perfect innovation that will lead to new business opportunities. So we are very pleased, Monge, to be part and to support this initiative because it's a great idea. We want to know.
The evening ended with an after party. Shane Jones, CBC News.
Thanks, Shane. The principal of the Ann Hill School has described the move to online learning as a positive one. Imelda Bell says it has been a learning experience which required considerable training for teachers on the use of G Suite in the initial stages. However, parents, siblings, and a donation of tablets have helped to get the over 100 students online. Ms. Bell says the school, which caters to pupils with special needs, has also adopted several strategies to ensure its charges continue their studies.
Sometimes we would have more than one teacher in the session as well, and just working with the children at their level, also doing like one-on-one, so the teacher might schedule a half-an-hour slot for a child where you could work through the difficulties that the child was having in the group sessions as well. So it has been pretty positive. The children are upbeat. They are very excited to see us online, and we're excited to see them because we miss them a whole lot as well.
A 5-year-old man was killed during a fiery crash on the Ronald Mapp Highway last night. The deceased has been identified as Anthony Brathwaite of Mills Apartments, Piton Road, St. James. Police say the young man, the lone occupant of the vehicle, was reportedly going in a northerly direction from Warrens to Redmond Village when he struck a Jersey barrier. The Kia Cerato burst into flames on impact, engulfing the car and its occupant around 10 minutes to 10. Emergency crews were pressed into action, with the Barbados Fire Service responding with 1 tender and 6 officers. As police investigations continue, the force has turned to the public, asking anyone who may have witnessed this accident to contact the District A police station at 430-7242. Here is a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
It is advisable for homeowners to protect their investment by effecting appropriate home insurance coverage during the hurricane season. Cooperators General Insurance, helping you to be prepared this hurricane season. Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has warned citizens against demanding revenge following recent protests. Those protests were sparked by the killing of 3 men by police last weekend. Prime Minister Rowley explains there's a difference between justice and revenge. TTT reports.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says justice involves the use of evidence that will determine who is responsible for the shooting on the weekend. Noting that the Police Complaints Authority has a duty to investigate police-involved killings, the Prime Minister said there is a bigger problem that must be addressed, that of our young people obtaining firearms for various reasons.
I'm appealing to the young people of this country and saying to them, the young and the not so young, when you take up arms for whatever reason, you are automatically putting yourselves in harm's way with respect to law enforcement.
The Prime Minister also said that what appeared to have been spontaneous events and sporadic fires in the streets were organized.
So for those who have a hand in organizing this, what in effect they're contributing to this chronic situation is a worsening of an already bad situation. And to them, we say, run your run. Those persons I'm talking about there, some of them are 2x4 politicians, some of them are hardened criminals for whom crime does pay.
In Guyana, coalition candidates are pleased with the arguments put forward by the attorneys representing their interests in the elections declarations case, which is before the Caribbean Court of Justice. Oral submissions were heard on July 1st by a 5-member panel of judges led by CCJ President Justice Adrian Saunders. NCN News reports.
Next Wednesday, the Caribbean Court of Justice will decide whether it can assume jurisdiction to appeal the decision of Guyana's appellate court that the election of the president must be based on valid votes according to the Guyana Constitution. Executive member of the Working People's Alliance, Dr. David Hines, says the decision of the CCJ would be a landmark one. He described as interesting arguments proffered by lawyers representing Eslin David and APNU AFC on Wednesday.
There's a lot that the court has to swear. We are in uncharted territory. The court has to think about its role within the context of the sovereign countries in the Caribbean. It has to think about its own position.
President of the Caribbean Guyana Institute for Democracy, Rickford Burke, is adamant that the CCJ should not have entertained any arguments on the matter since it does not have jurisdiction.
But I think that the court definitely doesn't have jurisdiction, and I would be surprised if the court were to try to overturn the Guyana Constitution. I think it would be inviting its disintegration because the people.
Meanwhile, coalition candidate attorney-at-law Amanza Walton Desir says the lesson from the entire process will inform how Guyana moves forward as a democratic and sovereign country.
The chair of the Group of 77 Countries, Guyana's ambassador to the United Nations, Rudolph Michael Tenpau, has announced he will be stepping down from the post. According to Mr. Tenpau, the decision takes effect at the end of his current appointment on July 31st, but he says he will proceed on annual leave from July 7th until month end. Following his departure and annual leave and until the appointment of his successor, Ambassador Neil Pierre, the current G77 coordinator in the permanent mission of Guyana, will assume responsibility for the G77 chairmanship. Mr. Tenpau made the disclosure in a letter to all permanent representatives of the member states of the Group of 77 and China to the United Nations.